But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 49er Faithful UK Live. Now, we have a slightly different version of Victory Tuesday this week. I'm not so keen of this particular version of Victory Tuesday. It's not as fun. But anyway, we'll get to it all the same. Anyway, I'm Nick Ludlam.
And I'm a very purdy upset Paul Hope.
But we get there, mate. We get there. It's not the end of the day, Faithful. We're only 5-2. We're still top of the West. There's still a lot to be happy about. We still very much control our own destiny. But before we get into that game, which is going to be fun, how have you been doing, Paul, mate?
Well, I've put Rob's comment up on the screen because it's well documented that on this side of the pond, Monday night football means Tuesday morning football. So it was a 1:15 a.m. start. I managed to grab a couple of hours sleep before the game started, got up, came downstairs. That first drive, I thought we were going to punch it in. I thought, happy days, don't worry, I'm not stealing your thunder. But the game finishes at 4:30 for us on this side of the pond. Managed to force myself to get some sleep and clocked in at work today at 9:30. And then I've just recorded the therapy session with the chaps at 6 o'clock, dusted that down, and I'm here. But Rob, we appreciate you guys checking in with us. We've put, man, you gents are the real deal fans. I don't know if I would have watched the game at 2 in the morning. Now, we never miss a game, Rob. That's what we're known for on this side of the pond. But, as Alex Simpson has put there, Nick, I am keeping the faith. You know me better than most. Ultra positive, upbeat. Yeah. The sky isn't falling, everybody. Oh. Yes, we lost another nail-biter, another emotional roller coaster. But guess what? We're still a bloody good football team, Nick.
Yeah.
But apart from the voice, we swapped roles. I've got a bit of a cold this week, so you might have to bail me out, buddy. Any notes from the neighbours? Or were you well behaved last night?
I ended up being fairly well behaved. It didn't start that way. It looked like obviously things were going to go rather well with that Ward pick, and I got loud. I did get a knock on the ceiling again, but after that, everything just kind of went a bit to, it all went a bit Pete-tong, didn't it, really? You know, very little seemed to go right after that, barring a few plays here and there. I don't think that, well, certainly not defensively. There's not too many players that can hold their head up high, but we'll get into that in a bit, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, thanks for joining us, buddy. We have to talk about last night. So we're not known for being fair weather fans. Now, if you've come tonight to hear me and Nick rip it down, shout from the rooftops, Shanahan needs firing, Wilkes needs firing. We lost this game 22-17. Despite how bad the defense played, despite Brock trying his best to lose the game, we still could have won that game, Faithful. Yeah. Nobody on this show said that we were going undefeated. There is some positives that I would like to take away from last night, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But first of all, we just want to say thank you for everybody who's joined us today. You may notice the chat might be a little bit quieter tonight because, as you've seen, Rob, us Faithful, it's a strange one, the Red Eye games, because you look forward to them, but you know the next day is going to be hell on earth, especially if you've got to go to work.
Yeah, see, this is why I always book a day off annual leave. I've done nothing today. I got up at around about 1 o'clock. It was really nice. I had a nice little cup of coffee. I seen them, obviously the group chat. I seen you and Kev were up early doors. I'm not getting up this time. I'm too old for that sort of rubbish. I can't be doing that sort of thing. So yeah, day off for me. I did absolutely nothing. I sat in the balcony. It was really nice.
Well, the problem I have with annual, well, say a problem. Obviously, one of the advantages of the pandemic for me is the transition to working from home. So I'm in the office some days, working from home some days. So today was a working from home day, but got to keep my annual leave for a little trip that we've got planned, Nick.
Indeed, just a little one.
How
Little
many
one.
days? Not that I'm counting, but how many days was it? 24?
24 days, man. I am counting down. I think I'm almost on to hours at this point because yeah, it's tough to be down about the game when you know you've got the big trip across going over. I mean, for you, it's even that much bigger. It's your first trip over. You know, I remember my first trip over about 4 years ago, just before the pandemic, and I remember for about 3 months beforehand, just buzzing. So I can still remember that far back, thankfully. But it's yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get too down when you know you're going over.
I mean, we spend, so for a fan in the UK, obviously the internet, YouTube, Twitter, the NFL's more accessible to us than it has ever been. But it's still not our number one sport, unfortunately, in this country. So you've got to go and find your content. And part of the appeal of the NFL is this kind of band of brothers feel, the faithful, the fact that we were all up 3, 4, 5 o'clock this morning. A little bit disappointed with the Discord game day thread last night. So for those people who were tuning in, we used to do a game day thread on Facebook, and that's how I used to do my talking during the game. You used to use Twitter. I used to do the game day thread. And then I moved away from that last year, mate, when I saw some of the comments getting a bit negative. And there were certain people just seemed to come out of the woodwork and only ever post when things were going wrong. Nadji set up the Discord. I transitioned over to that, and I had a blast on the game day. The last primetime game a couple of weeks ago, the game day thread was on fire. But last night, again, whether I'm just one of these people who's a bit more positive, it was a game of football. As I've just said at the start, people, CMC doesn't fumble that ball and he runs that one in. Moody doesn't miss the kick. We could have been 14, 15, 16 points up. You know, we're going to get into what the Vikings did against us, but I wasn't too downhearted, mate. It wasn't like we've got smashed like what we did to the Cowboys. It wasn't like a massive blowout. I mean, I will say at the moment, Kirk Cousins impressed me.
He looked good. You can't say it. He looked good. It's annoying that we lost to Monday Night Kirk because we all know what his history is like with the primetime games. He's horrific at them normally, but he did that to us without Justin Jefferson. I mean, he had those 2 young receivers who had fantastic games. You can't take anything away from them. They played really well, and we were horrific. We were terrible. And they didn't win by that much. Like you said, we weren't blown out. It's not like the game against the Chiefs last year when we were absolutely outclassed at everything. You know, offense, defense, special teams. It was all wrong in that game. Last night, special teams was okay, barring the kicking, was not fantastic in the middle. Offense wasn't too bad. I know Brock had they were chasing the game, I think. But it is what it is. But it was only the defense, really, that was really poor, and that's the worst I've seen our defense play in a long time. And the tackling, that was horrific, absolutely horrific.
So Nick has rubbed it in that he had a day off today, so Nick has set the schedule. But what we do on the Tuesday, we jump around. So now you mentioned the defense, buddy. I think we should go there before we go down the Brock Purdy. But just before we start, thanks for joining us, Luke. I agree. Last night was another frustrating contest, as you said there. But the more he watches this offense, the more he thinks we're getting to the playoffs healthy. Trent, Debo, CMC and friends will be key. Poor Rob fell asleep waiting for the show to start, missed the first 5 minutes. And Luke, I'm going to star your other comments, and I'm going to put that on in a moment. But the defense, so you mentioned the missed tackles, which I'm glad you've brought that up because I found the stat earlier. So we missed 9 tackles last night, everybody. And that means in the last 2 games, Nick, we've missed 19 tackles in those 2 losses.
We were just falling off them. You just swore to God they were greased up or something, the way in which we were falling off them on those tackles. It was awful. 2, 3 men every time just to get one man down.
Yeah, Gareth, the host on the pod, he does this new segment where we have to come with 3 talking points, and I was going to sprinkle this one in for you to see what you said. So one of my talking points, Nick, was under pressure. Now, what I meant by that was we're big on a Tuesday about talking about the eye test and the fact that there's been a lot of people jumping up and down that Nick Bosa hasn't been on form this year. He hasn't got the sacks. And I think last week I said to you, go and look at the pressure rate. We're getting pressure on the quarterback. But last night, Cousins dropped back 45 times. He only got hit 6 times, didn't get sacked once. So as a team, we only generated 18 pressures versus the Vikings. And Cousins was getting the ball out of his hands quicker than he's ever got it out. Now, did you see the Nick Bosa interview after the game? Or have you not had a chance to catch up yet?
I've not seen that bit yet. I must be honest. I didn't, but I was feeling a bit after the game, to be honest, and I decided to leave the pressers alone. But I have heard wasn't exactly complimentary about the scheme. As something that we're more of a rush 4 kind of thing. I'm not used to this volume of blitzes that we're doing. So I don't know, maybe the first sounds of discord, maybe.
Well, that was why I wanted to link those two together with my under pressure comment. I mean, what's crazy? You've got Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead on the field last night, and for any of them failing to get home on their rushes is unacceptable. And I believe it's why Wilkes decided, I don't know why he decided, with 16 seconds left, no timeout for the Vikings, to send the house after Kirk Cousins. So
and not leave a deep safety. Seriously, if you're going to do that, at least leave someone back there just in case something goes wrong. The moronic decision, that was really stupid.
Now, I'm going to give Wilkes slight bit of credit here. So you cast your mind back. We had the same growing pains with Salah. A lot of fans were calling for him to go. We had similar growing pains with D'Amico. Now, I'm not a fan of him being up in the booth, and I'm trying to kind of give him that time because he's come in, he's implementing his scheme.
Mm-hmm.
It was a struggle last night seeing Hufanga kind of stuck in no man's land. So that play we talked about, Hufanga looked hesitant whether he should go for the blitz. And by the time he made his mind up, the ball's out. Now, 9 times out of 10, Mooney Ward rips that away from Addison. But as Rob's put there, that the blitz before the half, which is idiotic. Go prevent, let them gain some big chunks, but slam the door shut.
Don't give them a touchdown.
Don't give them a touchdown. But as bad as the defence has been, everybody, in these last 2 weeks, and I love a good stat, Nick, we've only given up 20.5 points per game in the last 2 weeks, which is dead in the middle of the NFL average. Now, the downside is the last 2 weeks, the offence has only scored 17, which is good for 28th. So if we're giving Wilkes a bit of pressure, and I love Kyle Shanahan, I'm one of his biggest fans. Shanahan comes under fire for me for the last 2 games as well. I mean, Jordan Mason, what has he done to upset Kyle Shanahan? Have you?
He's been non-existent. I mean, it's not as if Elijah Mitchell comes in and instantly goes negative yardage. I know. I replied to someone on Twitter this morning about this exact subject. Jordan Mason needs to be RB2. No, it's not that I particularly have anything against Mitchell as such, but he's not really bringing anything to the party, and the frequent injuries are not helping his cause. It's not that he's not a talented running back. It's just that Jordan Mason's more reliable. And whenever you seem to give Jordan Mason the ball, he still falls forward. I almost see him as like an upgraded version of Jeff Wilson Jr. He's got the strength. He always falls forward. But on those yards, once he gets hit, he'll still... but Jeff may have made 1 or 2 after the first contact. Mason still seems to make 2 or 3 after first contact. And we're missing that. We are missing that. And I know CMC scored 2 TDs. And he kept saying before the game, I feel great. But me think you doth possess too much there, CMC. I don't think he really genuinely felt that great. I never really trust anything like that because you're always throwing smoke signals off for the opposition because they're listening in on these things. No one tells the truth on them. So you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt. But Jordan Mason's got to play.
See, I said to the chaps an hour ago, I've heard rumours that Mason isn't impressing in the pass protection. And given that Trent Williams wasn't playing last night, we already had concerns with the right side of the line. Kittle was already employed to block. we'd said the Vikings were going to blitz at an almighty rate. They bring the pressure from all over. I think that's maybe why Mason wasn't in there. But that fourth quarter, sat at home, you knew Brock was going to have to throw. Yeah. And I love CMC. Tracy always tells me off for saying I love that man. And you're right, he's not fully fit. Another costly fumble. As much as he scored the 2 touchdowns, as I said at the start, people, we're not fair weather fans. As much as I'm not going to go and be a negative Norman, I'm not going to be, I want everyone fired, the season's done. Me and Nick can talk football and we can say that was costly from CMC.
It was.
But my God, when he went down that side, and I leapt off the couch. I don't know how
that was beautiful.
I don't know how I didn't get a flag on the play from Tracy because at what time in the morning that was, but
that was gorgeous. That was a beautiful play design, and obviously you had that catch from Kittle, set that up beautifully on the play before. That entire drive was awesome. Everything, start to finish. I mean, they went literally almost the length of the field. I think actually that might have been one where it was set up by a decent return, actually, wasn't it, at first? So they went like 70-odd yards. They took hardly any time off the clock. It was just a wonderful drive from start to finish. You know, absolutely gorgeous. But it's all well and good having that one gorgeous play if you can't put it together and be a little bit more consistent throughout an entire game. You know, the game isn't one drive long.
I mean, as much as CMC is a superstar, you look at the stats, I think he was averaging 3 yards a rush. I think his longest was 9 yards. Yes, he had that 35-yard reception. He only made 3 catches. And as Luke has put there, as much as Shanahan's not happy with Mason and Mitchell's pass protection, their presence on the field telegraphs a run. Whereas I suppose CMC, you can line him up in the slot, he can get the receptions. And Luke's on the same page as most people. We want Mason and Mitchell to play more. I mean, what was worrying?
What you could do, though, you say that obviously it leads more likely to a run. Not necessarily, because you can always pull a wide receiver, and you can bring in Carl Juszczyk. So you can always have him splitting out. So then you can have him essentially becoming the slot receiver at that point. And you could always have George, do a quick block and then break off as well. They can be a foil for that. There is room to have those players on the field and still run a passing play.
Yeah, I mean, for me as well, what was difficult last night, so we'll transition nicely into Brock. It's what most 49ers fans want to talk about. So I want to say, Nick, before you give your opinion, it was a very Brock Purdy-esque performance for me. 21 of 30, 272 yards. The big difference was the interceptions. And we've been saying for weeks and weeks, Brock's been an upgrade on previous quarterbacks because he's protected the ball well. He hasn't put the ball in harm's danger. And I think we saw last night, without Deebo Samuel on there, he's had to lean to other receivers. That last one to Jennings, I think Jennings is bumped at the top of his route, but it shows that Jennings isn't as good a route runner as Ayuk. And I'm not taking anything off the throw from Brock. I mean, we were in the hurry-up offense. I did think we were going to win. When there was 40 seconds on the clock and we were marching up the field, I thought we were going to win. But what was your thoughts on Brock Purdy? Because obviously my non-Niners friends have took great delight in waking up this morning and seeing Brock Purdy throwing interceptions. He's not elite in their eyes. We can't win the Super Bowl with him. You know, Niners Twitter hasn't been as bad as I thought it was going to be. But what's your thoughts on number 13?
I'm still on the Brock train. Absolutely 100%. He's going to be fine. Look, he is still ultimately, he still hasn't played a full one season's worth of games. He is still a very young man going through some growing pains, but still performing at a very high level. Like, that first interception was awful. That is all. That's Brock. That was a really bad interception. The second one, I'm not so inclined. I know it ultimately cost us the game because it gave the ball back, and they were just able to kneel the game out at that point. But if you look at that Vikings defender, he's practically at full stretch on that. I would be. You'd be remiss if you don't give the Vikings defender credit on that one, because he really had to make an effort to snag. It's not like the ball landed in his lap. You know, it wasn't some horrific throw. It wasn't a bad one. The Vikings defender made a really good play on that ball. Let's take nothing away from him there. And it's not that I'm trying to shield Brock, as I said, that first one was awful, absolutely awful. But he still never really looked like he was panicking.
No.
And that's the best thing about it. You're looking at a young man who's still, even when things are going wrong, he doesn't panic.
I mean, for me, mate, what was nice to see is there was a lot of talk of Trey Lance, and I interrupted you there because I've got to the bit. What Brock Purdy showed, he's mobile when it needs to be. The scrambles were quite clever. As I said, it was a Brock Purdy-esque performance for me with his stat line, very similar to what we've seen. Probably going to tell you something you're already aware. We don't need a Patrick Mahomes in this offense.
No.
Yes, would we love an elite quarterback as 49ers fans?
Anyone would.
But I think the naysayers coming for Brock. Now, it's too soon to say whether the NFL has found him out. We could have been sat here 7-0 if the ball's bounced the right way. Purdy showed last week when he put the team on his back and marched them up the field. He did it again last night, or early hours of this morning. And I'm going to echo what I said last week, and I want your thoughts on this. I'd rather we suffered some adversity like we've seen these last 2 weeks now, rather than get to the playoffs and everything be plain smooth sailing, everything be all smooth, and then Brock throw an interception in the playoffs and the sky falling. Because last time I checked, we're still top of the division.
Yeah. But that still gets us in the playoffs. It's not like we lost the NFC Championship game last night. We're still, our destiny is still in our hands. There's a lot to be thankful for. Like you say, to find out what he's like with a bit of adversity is much better to know now than, like you said, it is in 5, 6, 7 weeks' time. He's going to be fine. Brock Purdy is still a franchise quarterback. I saw one plonker last night try and claim Brock Purdy looks like a 7th-round pick.
So was that on Twitter, or was that on one of the game day threads? Yeah,
I saw that on Twitter. Really? Brock Purdy looks like a 7th-round quarterback. Don't talk nonsense. All you were after there is likes and retweets, and all you managed to make yourself look was stupid. Because he looked nothing like a 7th-round pick last night.
I told you to stay off Twitter. Big shout out to Jax. Knox is in the house. She's one of the faithful from across the pond. Our official photographer, Wayne, is here, but his phone won't let him add the chat, so he shall watch and be quiet. But go Niners. We appreciate the love, Wayne.
Get on, mate.
Now, Nick, you have the schedule, but I believe Deebo Samuel was someone you wanted to talk about tonight. So should we
was a little bit, yeah. So you've got obviously the lack of Deebo, and then the question I really wanted to put to you is certainly surrounded because our run game didn't look great last night. There was a couple of big plays that papered over some cracks, I thought. But do you think maybe a lack of a Deebo, does that make the Niners run game more predictable and easier to plan for?
I mean, we said last year before CMC became a Niner, thank God for that trade, John Lynch. Just going to say that out there. We said Deebo was our most complete weapon and Ayuk was our true receiver. And I think that was evident last night. Now, Ayuk had a poor game, got his jersey hung up by his standards. Still, 5 receptions, 57 yards on 6 targets. But when Deebo lines up alongside him, the defense don't know whether it's going to be a jet sweep, whether it's going to be one of those behind the line of scrimmage passes. Deebo can take that out. So there was a jet sweep to Kittle, I think on like a 3rd and 1. And Kittle came across, got the first down. Deebo Samuel's getting yards after the catch on that. Deebo Samuel's getting 10, 15, possibly takes it to the house. And you're right, I think a few people have maybe said, trade market. Could Deebo be one of those names that the Niners look to let go? I think we'd be crazy, given how we've played these last 2 weeks. I think he's still one of those weapons that Brock Purdy needs. I think he adds that different dynamic. He's not known as the first NFL wide back for a reason. And I'm not just saying it because Connor Ryan's a good friend of mine and Deebo's his favourite player. But hopefully he'll be back on the field from where in the gold mine. in 24 days' time. If people didn't know, we're going to be there for the Buccaneers game.
May have mentioned it once or twice.
May have mentioned it once or twice. But I do think, as I said earlier, Shanahan's play calling last night seemed a little bit vanilla on offense. And whether we underestimated the Vikings, like you said, I'll echo what you said. Kirk Cousins deserves all the flowers.
Yeah.
He played better than I thought he would play, especially without Justin Jefferson, especially without the run game. The worrying was when Cam Akers started running on our defence. And I think as Niners fans, we've been spoilt, Nick. Just moving off your question, we're used to an elite defence. We're used to those elite weapons on the offence. And when both are struggling, so the defence was struggling last night, the offence was struggling, but the sky's not falling in. And 19 better not be going anywhere.
I can't see him going anywhere just yet. It's not like we're struggling for cap space at the moment either. If anything, the Niners are going to be buyers in the build up to next Tuesday for the trade deadline. In fact, there was one name I wanted to sort of bring up as a potential. I know he's been mooted a few times on social media, but Cordell Patterson. I like the addition of Cordell Patterson. You've got a man who can chip in with returning the ball should anything happen with Ray. You've got a man who he can split out as a wide receiver, just like CMC can. He's not going to do it at the same level, but he can do it. And I really like that addition to this Niners offense, especially like I said, I don't fully trust Mitchell being able to stay healthy. But I think he's a nice foil then for CMC so that he can get a rest as much as anything sometimes. And you've still got, but I'm still bringing Mason through as my RB2. But I'd be kicking the bucket on Cordell Patterson for sure.
I mean, Lynch and Shanahan have shown they can be aggressive in the trade market. Obviously, CMC, Jimmy G. We've taken calls. I know that it's a few teams have rang about Dre Greenlaw. Slightly worried the Eagles strengthened last night with the signing of Bard, however you pronounce it, from the Titans. Before I put Luke's comment up there, Kev Williams has put that with Debo. He feels as though what he does goes unnoticed because we're used to it. And as soon as he's not on the field, we miss him. Now, because we've transitioned into the trade talk, Luke put this in earlier that if he had one position to improve before the trade deadline, it's help at DB, cornerback, or slot cornerback. Good job, El Presidente is not watching Luke because he's pinning all his hopes on Sammy Womack coming back to save the day. I've seen rumours, Nick, of Surtain from the Denver Broncos. I like him a lot. I just don't want to pay the rumoured 2 first-round picks that I've seen on social media. Whether that's just hype talk at the moment. The trade deadline is next Tuesday, everybody. I'm not sure of the time, but obviously me and Nick do go live 8 p.m. GMT, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So we will be obviously looking a bit more at the trade. The cap space is there, like you've said. So I wouldn't rule anything out. I know Brad Graham wants Brian Burns. He's banging the drum for another edge rusher, but we are in win now mode. Now, Neil Graham agrees with your take. He believes Patterson would be a good addition, as you've said there, Nick. And he's pointed out there that Shanahan likes his versatile players, so he's fitting well. And another name he's seen mentioned is J.C. Horn of the Panthers. So what's your thoughts on that, Nick? J.C. Horn?
Not a bad addition, let's be honest. That's my next one. Like I said, after Cordell Patterson, I'm looking at corner as well. I'm with you guys in the chat. I would like to see another corner coming in. I'd like to see a decent. I say a decent name. What's a decent name? I'd like to see us make a bit of a wave when it comes to that. Someone who is almost Charvarius Ward's equal to play on the other side. This team is stacked, but we are a little thin in the corners. I think outside of Ward, there has been a bit shaky play at times. I thought Lenore was hard done by last night. Again, I know. Look, I'm not saying the referees cost us, but this is the second week in a row where refereeing decisions have had a very large impact on the game.
The problem you've got with JC Horn is the CMC tax, because there's no way the Panthers are letting us steal another play after what we did. You like that, don't you?
Very true. Very true.
CMC tax.
Very true.
No, I think I agree with you. I don't like to talk about the officials because they're not the ones who win or lose games, and you shouldn't just focus on one player. I will say it appears to be an issue across the NFL.
It is. They're having way too much of an impact on final score lines.
Our good friends John V and Nico are back on the locker room rant on late tonight. There's no way I'm staying up for that, but I'll watch back. But they talked about the officiating last week, and it is across the league. Sunday, I went out to a local casino with my flag team just to watch Red Zone and take in the games. And I did notice some calls that I was thinking it's interesting. It isn't just happening to the Niners. And it is a shame. As Colin has put there, the Vikings wide receiver pushed off Demo, but Demo got flagged for pass interference.
It's ridiculous. They were both wrong. They were both bad calls. They were both very bad calls. I mean, hell, there was one that it was 50-50, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen the other, whichever phrase you want to use. It's never a flag on just the Niners, I'm sorry. Utter tosh. Utter tosh. I'd like to use other words. I really would.
Family friendly. Remember that.
The standard of refereeing has been horrific. It has been horrific. Referees should be seen and not heard. And at the end of the day, the only time, that's it. I want to hear them at the kickoff and at the end of each quarter when they're maybe blowing whistles. That's it. Realistically, but they're throwing these flags at the wrong times.
See, Rob's raised a good point there. So most defenders can get a little handsy, but when you know the refs are giving flags against you, you've got to kind of temper that. You know, probably laugh people watching. Me and you both play flag football, and you know the level of refereeing is different from game to game. But you know if you're in a game and the referees are being strict on certain things, and I think that's what comes down to possibly Wilkes being up in the booth and not being on the sideline. We're used to D'Amico Ryans. We're used to Robert Saleh. We're used to that energy on the sideline. Look at the Cleveland Browns last week. Jim Swartz seems to have a hold over the Niners. He's on that sideline. The Cleveland Browns are celebrating every tackle, every win. And Lee said it on the pod earlier, Nick, and I wanted your take on. He said it doesn't look like our defence are having fun. You cast your mind back to last year, the big hits, the pick sixes, where under Wilkes at the moment, the defence doesn't seem to be enjoying the football. And maybe that could be playing into some of the mistakes that we're seeing with the penalties, with the missed tackles. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's certainly something that maybe needs to be looked at. You know, Fred's Fred. After everything, Fred is in there. He's celebrating. He's banging his chest. The feet stomps are coming in, but it is lacking from some of the other players. It does. It looks more like work than it does than playing a sport. And I think that's actually a really good way of putting it. It does look like they're not having fun.
So, on your schedule, we're not quite ready to move over to the Bengals. We're not giving you the would you rather, because I feel as if there is more to talk about. I think we need to demonstrate that we're not the fair weather fans. Obviously, the first 5 weeks of the season, this show's been really easy. The last two have been a bit difficult. Rob D's put there while getting your thoughts that both the Browns and the Vikings have mocked us with a boombox entrance. Maybe that's the secret to beating the 49ers. Possibly, Rob. I don't want to see the Niners change who we are. And the boombox coming out, the players jumping around, that's part of our identity. If anything, I'd like to see us be a little bit more cocksure or a bit more arrogant, because we are a bloody good team in this football league. And let's not, make no bones about it. The mistakes that we're seeing are correctable. Like I said, the sky's not falling, but is there anywhere else that you feel we haven't given enough time tonight?
I know we have said some rather horrible things about our defense, but I think it is worth mentioning that there were two players I thought can come out of last night who can hold their head. Well, actually, maybe three who can hold their head up high. Oren Burks, great game. Yeah, Dre Greenlaw looked good coming back from it. It's his first one back. That wasn't. It's a bit of it's that stinger injury. It's going to play in the back of your mind always. The other one may surprise you a little bit. Randy Gregory.
I
I
thought you were
didn't
gonna say
think
Fred
Randy
Warner.
Gregory was all that bad. Now, Gregory, in fact, he had that pressure where I'm sorry, that was intentional grounding all day long. Don't care what the rules say. That was intentional ground. He literally threw it right at the floor, almost dead in front of him. There's no, they said in commentary, there's no air on the ball coming out.
No,
That was intentional grounding. It should have been called. And Randy Gregory had him dead to rights. He was ready to take Kirk's head off. I think he's fitted in quite well. And I'm taking that as a positive from that game, from the last two games, really. I think he's slotted in well. I think as the whole defense starts to perform better as a whole, we'll see more out of Randy Gregory as well. So I'll give him his dues. Like I say, they weren't bad at all.
So Neil's just put there that he's seen a comment online from a Niners fan in another group that our D-line is trash. Steve's put there that he hopes he's wrong, but he doesn't think our D-line is as good as we all think. We can't keep blaming the QBs thrown quickly. So I'm not sure whether you caught the start of the show, Steve, where we were talking about the pressures generated by the D-line isn't good enough for this team. 18 pressures as a team. It's interesting you mentioned Gregory because he was down for 2. Hargrave 2, Greenlaw 2, Armstead 2, and Bosa 6. So you're right in some regards, Steve. I mean, we've seen some of the better quarterbacks in the league. Quick release, negate that pass rush. I did say to Nick, had he seen the Bosa interview, which he hadn't, but he'd heard about it. It was interesting to see Bosa say, I'm struggling with the transition. We're normally a front 4 Russian team. And a few people are saying that given that Bosa held out, he literally turned up the day before the season started. Is he missing on some of those key pieces? I am a bit nervous with how Wilkes is playing the secondary and the coverage a bit soft. You know yourself, Nick.
Too soft.
If your D-line's getting pressure on the quarterback and if your back end's holding up, it's a marriage made in heaven. But if both are struggling... so when you said your 3 defenders there, I thought you were going to say Fred Warner, because again, Fred and Dre proved they're the best tandem in the linebacking core in the NFL. And Burks is just an added bonus. I didn't think he'd get as much chance as he's getting, and when he's on the field, he's playing well. But again, I don't think the sky's falling in, and I'm happy for people to come at me in my DMs. I'm happy for people to talk about it. I didn't go to bed at 5 o'clock this morning, Nick, thinking that's our season done. Fire everyone. The mistakes are correctable. It'll be interesting to see where we go moving forward. Just wanted to shout out cheeky Club 85. I thought Kittle had a good game last night. He led the Niners with 5 receptions, 78 yards and 7 targets. He was great in the blocking game. It's just a shame we couldn't get him in the end zone.
Just couldn't unleash him.
As Rob's put there, we're softer than butter in the desert.
Not wrong.
And as Lucas put there, Cousins was getting rid of the ball quickly to open receivers. That reduces the sacks. But all in all, we still could have won that game last night. So that's the positive that I am taking. Is there any more positives that you want to take, Nick, before we move on to a section that everybody's waiting for?
No, come on. Let's bring it on then. Come on, bud. I've been worried about this. Half day. This is the problem with having the day off after the game, especially on the Monday night. It means I've had the day to think, well, what's Paul cooking up? What's Paul going to come with?
We do need to get a little jingle for this bit. But so last week I didn't do my homework on the Would You Rather. So indeed. I just wanted to start off, Nick, by saying apologies to everybody because mine wasn't very good. Now, after that loss last night, I think you'd all agree that we need this week's Would You Rather to be something a little bit special for Nick. It's well documented that you're a little bit more evil to me. And in 24 days' time, we will be heading across the pond to the Buccaneers game with 1 or 2 others from the group, I believe.
1 or 2. We got a few of us.
Now, Joe Staley, the 49ers, they love the UK faithful. They've reached out. They've got something very special lined up for when we get out there. I'm talking VIP. When I say VIP, Nick, you name it. Locker room access, player autographs, Joe Staley in the gold mine with us.
I'm already waiting for the bat.
However, they've set you a challenge. So, we're going to get there on the Friday. and we're going to be able to go to training. And
Okay.
you either have to, listen very carefully because you've got a choice of
God.
two, complete 40 passing yards in 4 quarters with our full offence versus our full defence as the QB. So you'd be QB, you've got 4 quarters to get 40 passing yards versus our defence. Or, given your flag football background, you can catch 4 passes for 40 yards as a receiver in this offence against our defence. Now, before you give me your answer, if you complete either of those, boom, you get the VIP experience, everyone's jumping all over you. But if you lose, the team come up with a forfeit that will be recorded and posted on the team's social media. What are you going to do?
I think I already know this, where I'm going, to be honest, because I'm not going to be... I'm not going to attempt to catch it. I can't throw the ball particularly well, but I'm also not going to attempt to catch a ball. Can you imagine being drilled by Dre Greenlaw or Fred Warner? They break me in half. Paul,
did you notice 40 passing yards in 4
Indeed.
quarters?
And no, this is my plan. I'm going to be the quarterback because all I'm going to do, I'm going to step 3 blocks and I'm going to have somebody running jet sweeps in front of me. I'm just going to pop the ball because as long as the ball goes forwards, it is a forward pass. All I am doing, I am going to pop the ball up in the air, just a little bit in front of me, and CMC is going to go get me 40 yards on the first one.
So the reason I went down this path, I said our good friends at the locker room rant, they had a very similar one where they'd ask the guest where you'd either hit a home run or you could take, was it a punt reception? And you have to see how far you could run. Well, I saw the question about the 40 passing yards and I thought, in today's NFL, like you've just said there, people automatically think you have to be able to throw the ball quite far. So,
tiny little toss forward, let the players do the work. I don't have to get hit, and I don't have to look like a fool attempting to throw the ball because I can't do that. I can't throw a decent spiral.
It was worth the build-up just to get to the butt to see the look on your face. So I couldn't be too evil. Thought we'd ease it way back in gently. Before Nick asks me his,
come on.
We have opened up the Would You Rathers to you guys watching at home. So we're going to say if anybody would like to jump on next week and ask us a Would You Rather, please do reach out to me or Nick in our DMs. What we would need is if you'd be able to join on about 8:30, keep you for 10, 15 minutes. You ask us your Would You Rather, then you jump off. If it's something you're interested in, please do hit us up because it would add a new dimension to the show. And on that note, mate, over to you.
Okay. Now, there's obviously been quite a lot of talk about Mr. Moody. And, of course, a certain kicker who remains unsigned currently. Indeed. Now, this is where I'm going. Because... of course, as we know, El Presidente sorts out all of the contract extensions and sorts out all the negotiation these days, having already sorted out the re-signing of Kyle and John whilst he was over there.
Just a coincidence that apparently.
Apparently so, yeah. Coincidence. But he's been at it again. But this time he's been at it with the agent of Robbie Gould. And he's managed to negotiate Robbie's contract right down. Yeah, so he's done. But Robbie's willing to do the rest of the season, but only the rest of this season, for just above vet minimum, as a favour to Lee. All right, but what's going to happen then? Of course, Moody's off. All right, he's going to end up. He's going to end up being cut or moved down to the practice squad, but he's never going to make it to the practice squad because he's going to get claimed on waivers. Basically means he never becomes a Niner for the rest of his career. But you get Robbie for the rest of this year only. But we're back to the drawing board at the end. Or you can keep the status quo. So what would you rather, Paul? Would you rather, like I say, lose a potentially very good kicker for the rest of his career, and he's only young, just to have a 2-3 month rental on Robbie, or you're going to roll the dice and stick with Nick?
See, what I think a few people forget if you go back to the Raiders game last year, Robbie Gould missed a kick to win the game and he was bailed out by overtime. yes, Moody missed a 41-yard against the Vikings, but he also nailed a 55-yard. And Robbie Gould isn't nailing 55 yards. On record, Moody Mania. We called for the Moody pick in the draft. There's no way that I'm trading that one in. Sorry, Robbie. You're as good as gold. You'll always go down in my mind as a Niners legend purely for that win in Green Bay against the Packers, because my friend absolutely hated that and it was epic. But I'm keeping Jake Moody. I don't think it's not Jake's fault that he was drafted in the 3rd round. Jason Aponte on his show was like, you never take a kicker that high. Jason's not a massive fan of kickers in general, but I'm sticking with Jake Moody. So I would politely decline your option, and I'm sticking with Jake. What would you do?
I'm sticking with Jake. 100% I'm sticking with Jake. I think you're looking at a young man just going through some rookie issues. He's missed 3 kicks all year. That's it. It's not like he's batting. Well, I was say batting 300. It's not like he's below 50%. He's actually not doing too badly. He's a young lad. He's going to be all right, and he's going to be our kicker for some time. I think he's going to come good. Just needs a bit of time.
So that leads us on to the gold mine. So yes,
indeed,
you're going to get sick of hearing me talk about the gold mine. First ever trip to Levi's, counting down the days. Rob has put there that he wasn't worried on the 50-plus yard kicks. Now, he's kind of given me permission, so I'm going to break the news to you anyway, because there's not a... Somebody reached out to me earlier and said that unfortunately they wouldn't be able to join watching the show live.
Indeed.
And he's always in the comments, and he's a big miss. But he also said that he's coming to Levi's and he would see me at the gold mine. I obviously was very excitable and was like, am I allowed to break this news? He then replied and said he'd left a message on the chat for the show telling everyone tonight. Let's surprise everyone then. So James Waters will be joining us in the gold mine. So, as I said, 24 days time till we go over there. We will be posting all over social media. I don't make any apologies for that.
Nah.
Now, as I was looking to see whether James had commented, Colin has thrown in his opinion on the D-line, and he's put that more stunts from the front 4 needed. The rush lanes are too predictable, which is right. Yeah. Now, this week, the clocks change across the pond. So NFL Sunday starts at 5 p.m. And it means the game against the Bengals is a 8:25 game. Now, this is relevant given that there's a lot of, I want to say nonsense, but I know you have your own superstitions, but I've seen a few people comment that I've been to 2 weddings the last 2 weeks. So technically speaking, the 49ers are 0-2 when I go to a wedding. And yes, I'm at another one this Saturday. And someone put on Twitter, don't go. And I was like, do you think I have the choice? It's a family wedding. I've got to go.
Yeah.
John Chapman put a tweet out asking what was the reason we've lost. And some of the responses on there are hilarious. But I've even seen talk like no more watch parties. And I think people need to remember that it's sport.
I think it's a little bit of sarcasm in there. I know it does go over my own head sometimes, but I've done all my superstitions right. And I did them all right this week. And it's almost as if the team didn't care about my pre-game routines. I do them, just for the team, but they didn't care and they went and lost. It's not right.
Well, the reason I've mentioned, because it's to save the daylight, so a lot of people, Rob, on this side of the pond, it's their favourite NFL Sunday of the year because it means it starts at 5 p.m. and it means normally it's an earlier finish because the game starts 6 p.m. on a Sunday, then the late slate's 9 p.m, then the prime time game's like 1 in the morning. But the Sky Sports have announced that we are the Sky game at 8:25, much to my annoyance because I pay for Game Pass through Dazan. So I may be looking to arrange a mini meet up at the casino in Stockton. And what I wanted to say, Nick, is if you have a sports bar in your area, just go down, ask if they'll show the game, and then arrange your own meetups. The watch party in London was the biggest one we've had. Me and Lee did a special edition live last Wednesday, which we talk all about the watch party. And I just want to say, Nick, if you are wanting to put one together, just let us know. It's always great to see the faithful go out and watch the game together. So I just wanted to kind of get to this point in the show and mention that. What will you be watching the game on? Will you be at home? Will you be heading out?
I'll be at home. I am not going anywhere for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'm being good because I want to maximize spending money. I want to be eating a calzone at Tony's. I will be then, popping down to Ghirardelli's for a nice hot fudge sundae. I will be going to Panda Chicken in the Westfield Mall. Panda Express for some orange chicken, because honestly, I'm full on addicted to that stuff. It's awesome. I don't care what anyone says. There's things I just want to do, things I want to eat, places. So I'm staying in. I'll be at home. But as I said, man, there's so many of us. There's actually a lot more faithful this side of the pond than you'd realize. And if you think you're the only one in your town, find out. Chances are that there's someone else somewhere that supports the same team. And you never know. You might find yourself getting a new superstition because it becomes a tandem thing. Put it in the group. See who's about.
I mean,
it's awesome.
Our watch party was pretty epic, but I don't know if you saw the John Chapman photos from the 49ers rush invasion in Minnesota. That looked epic. I definitely have to get to one of those. The advantage of my flag football team being sponsored by the local casino is, as a non-alcoholic drinker, soft drinks are free at the casino, so it doesn't cost me a penny when I go. So yes,
I bet they love you then.
Well, everybody else. I'm the driver. I'm designated driver, Anna, so I bring people who are having a drink, and they're trying to grow the NFL community in the Northeast where I am. And the guy who's the manager at the casino, I want to say he's a Chicago Bears fan, but there was a few of us down there last week, and we had our Super Bowl party there last season. So that's where I'll be heading. Is there anything else at this point in the show, Nick, that I need to mention? Because you have the schedule and I need to get the video loaded.
I think we're all good there, guy. I think just as always, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Without any people watching, there is no show. It's just me and Paul, basically on the poshest FaceTime call ever. So thank you all for tuning in with us, guys. Remember, this season isn't over. It's 5-2. We're still rolling. The destiny is still in our hands. We will still win this division. We will go to the playoffs. The San Francisco 49ers will still be Super Bowl champions. Don't let those fools tell you any different. We're going to be just fine. So I think, you got anything more to add there, bud?
Well, Rob's put now go get some sleep.
I got plenty of sleep. I'm good.
All I wanted to say was a final thank you to everybody who has subscribed to our YouTube channel. So blown away that we've reached 625 subs.
Indeed.
Please do drop a like. A comment on the YouTube video would be epic. I know I'm being a bit cheeky here, but we are trying to grow the content. We are trying to grow the channel. Feedback is always well received, good and bad.
Absolutely.
Like you said, we do like doing the Would You Rather. We would like people to come on and ask us because it brings a different element to the show. And I'm not going to ask Nick for a score prediction for Sunday Night Football because he doesn't do that. But what I will say, Nick, for those people that do like score predictions, do tune into the 49er Faithful UK pod later in the week.
Get
and
downloading.
I think all that is left for me to say, Nick, until I see you next week, is stay safe and go Niners.
Go Niners, baby.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, Deep Clark, Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99.